Teresa, welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me here today. Today we're going to be making this lovely festive Christmas tree display. You can use it as a table centerpiece, pop it on a shelf. I've loved using these vintage colours here. I feel it's not traditionally Christmas, so you could keep this out year round and not feel guilty at all. I was inspired to make this after watching a video by Julia Kallen. I'll link to that in the description below. She used some beautiful felt and faux fur to create her little forest scene. So I decided to take inspiration from her video, change it up a little bit and go for this vintage shabby chic look with the lace and the pearls and the trims and the vintage music paper. Really simple and fun project, a way of using up things that you've probably got in your scrap bag, bits and pieces that are about. I'm going to move this out of the way and I'll be back to show you how it's done. As always, I'll give you a quick rundown of what I'm using today. The basis for my trees are these paper mache cones. Now, I bought these from a craft store. They're really sort of inexpensive to buy, but there's no reason why you can't just make some cones out of sort of cereal box cards, something like that sort of weight. I like these paper mache ones because they are a little sturdier than some that you might make yourself. And I've got them in a couple of sizes here. I've got a couple of tall ones and then I've got a few of these smaller ones, and they're going to be the basis for my trees. And I'm going for a sort of shabby chic vintage sort of feel to things. I've got some old sheet music here. I'm going to be using that underneath a couple of the lighter coloured lace pieces that I'm using, or the ones with the sort of larger holes in, just as a bit of a basis so that we don't see so much of the paper mache base. And then for the main part of my decoration is these various trims and laces. Now, most of these when I bought them were white and I just dyed them with some tea. For those of you that watched me make my journal either last year or the year before, I tea stained a lot of lace and paper and things like that just to age it all. And if you've never tea stained lace or trims and things, just get yourself a bowl, put in 2 or 3 tea bags, fill it with boiling water, plunge your lace and trims and everything in there and just leave it to steep in there until it gets to the colour that you want it to be, basically. Then rinse it out, dry it, and you'll see you've got all these lovely shades. I mean, things like this one were originally this creamy colour, but most of these other ones here were white originally. And the tea just sort of gives them all a really nice warm tone. So I've got all these various trims. I've also got a few sort of like little pearl bead trims, little bits of rickrack and some narrower lace and some twine that I might use as well. Possibility I might stick a couple of beads or bits and pieces in there. Obviously, if you've seen the thumbnail, you know what they look like when they're finished. But I just like to leave my options open, and I've just gathered together a load of things here. I like this. This is just like a little pleated fabric trim, and I just think they're going to work quite well together. I've also got some pieces of dowel because a couple of the trees, I think I'm going to put them on a bit of dowel as if they're on a small trunk. And I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be using this little MDF circle as my base. This is about 6-7 inches in diameter. Again, if you don't have something like this, you could use some sturdy cardboard, a couple of layers of card put together. Always cover it with some decorative paper. There's a possibility I might cover this with a bit more of the vintage sheet music paper. Or you could put some paint, some texture paste, make it look snowy. Lots of ideas there. You could indeed, if you've got one of those lovely slices of log with some bark around the edge, that would look beautiful. But I think I'm going to use this. I've got my hot glue gun, which I'm going to use to stick pretty much everything today. Hopefully I'm not going to burn my fingers too many times as I'm doing it. I do normally manage to stick my finger in the glue. But it's going to be quite a simple process, and I just thought it would make a lovely little festive centerpiece or Christmas decoration to put on the table or on a little shelf somewhere. Again, these things make great gifts if you've got friends that appreciate handmade gifts. This is beautiful, and although it is festive, they're trees, they're Christmas tree shapes, because I'm using non-traditional sort of things here. It's not red and green, it's all going to be these beautiful creams and browns. It could indeed be kept out year round. It doesn't have to be just for Christmas. So I'm going to clear myself a little bit of space and we'll get started. So I'm going to begin with one of these larger cones, and I've just covered it with some of that vintage sheet paper that I showed you a moment ago. Just wrapped it round, glued it on, and just trimmed around the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's there just as a base, because I'm going to be using this crocheted lace here, and because it's quite open in design. I mean, I know the brown does tone with it, but I just wanted something underneath that wasn't the plain paper mache. And I'm basically going to be layering it around my tree, just gathering it slightly so that it fits as the cone gets narrow, and just gluing it in place with my hot glue gun.
Oh, how I wish for the Christmases of old, where the snow would fall and the air was crisp and cold, where we heard of angels up on high while building Frosty the Snowman until late outside. Oh, how I wish for the Christmases of old, when all was right and the candlelight would glow, where we used to play in the wintry wonderland, and we'd hear carols sung from Rudolph's marching band. Oh, give me an open fire, some eggnog and mistletoe, and the sense of wonder and someone to hold close.
So that's all covered in our lace now. I really like that. I'm going to just add a little bit of this pearl bead trim, and I'm going to add this by putting a dab of glue at the top, just loosely spiraling it round and attaching it at the bottom.
Give me some ribbons and a chimney for Santa's sake. No, it's not too late.
And there, that just adds another little layer of a little bit of shine on top of that lace. I'm going to call that one done. Next, I think I'm going to do one of these medium-sized ones, and I want to use this pleated fabric. I've had a little look, and I think I have got the right amount to sort of spiral round this and glue in place. I think we're just about going to make it. So I'm going to start with a little bit of glue at the bottom, get that end secure.
It's not too late. Oh, how I wish for the Christmases of old, where the snow would fall and the air was crisp and cold. Oh, how I wish.
And there's our second tree, and I love the way that that pleated fabric just fans out a little bit as it goes. So yeah, really pleased with that. Might just tuck that end in there. But again, that one's really simple. I'm not doing anything else to that one. I'm going to leave that. And next I'm going to move on to this fringing here. This is sort of like an upholstery trim, sort of thing you'd get around the bottom of a sofa, an old sofa or something like that. Again, this was tea stained, but this I'm going to just layer around my cone, and I'm hoping I've got enough here to do a large cone. Let's just check before we glue it in place. Yeah, looks like we're going to have enough there. I'm not going to bother to cover this one. I'm going to leave it as it is. And again, in the way that I've just done that last one, going to start by attaching the end we're going to go around the bottom, and then we're going to start spiraling up the tree as we go.
For the Christmases of old, when all was right and the candlelight would glow, where we used to play in a wintry wonderland, and we'd hear carols sung from Rudolph's marching band.
There's our third tree. This one I've just decorated. I've got a little bit of fine craft wire and some pearl beads, and I've just sort of glued a few beads along, threaded them on, put a little dab of glue on, and just spiraled that round just for a little bit of a lift again on that one. Really like that one. So next I'm going to move on to another one of the medium ones, and I think I'm going to use this rose lace trim, this ribbon trim. I like this. Again, I should have enough here just to cover this small one. So as with all of them, start at the bottom. We're going to use the bottom of this cone as the guide just to get it covered. Got our little lace ribbon tree there, and again I think I'm going to leave that. I might put a bit of trim around the bottom, maybe a bit of this rickrack, or I think I'll use a little bit of this fine lace just around the bottom.
It's insane. Now we're back here once again. Holidays and cheer.
I think I'm going to go on to one of these small ones. I'm going to use this crocheted lace, this lovely natural toned crochet lace. That might be it. I don't think I've got room for any more on my little base at this point. So I'm thinking if we're going to have them arranged on here, that's probably as many as I'm going to get on there. So I think I'm going to cover the base. I'm going to cover it with some vintage music, sheet music. Just going to glue that in place, and I'll be back to show you how I'm just going to attach some of the trunks and then fix everything together. So I've covered the board with some paper. I've gone around the edge with a little of this vintage photo coloured distress ink just to sort of tone in with the lace and trims that we've used. And then I used the hot glue gun just to put some of this natural twine around the edge. I just thought that finished that off quite nicely. And now I've got to decide how I'm going to arrange these. And I think it's going to be a couple of the bigger ones in the back, and then obviously these smaller ones towards the front. But I do have a couple of these like pieces of dowel, so I'm trying to decide which ones might look nice on a trunk. And I think this one's going to look quite nice. I think I'm going to leave this one down on the board because I like the way that looks. So this one I'm going to put on a dowel, and I think this little lace one here I'm going to put on a dowel. And the way I'm going to do that is just by putting some hot glue on the end of this dowel. Nice big blob of hot glue. And then just holding that just till it cools enough to set in place inside that tree. Doesn't take long. And so there we've got our little tree on a trunk. And I say I'm going to do the same with this little one here. Again, nice big blob of glue on the end of that dowel. And up inside that cone, and try and get it fairly straight. It doesn't have to be perfect, but try and get that fairly straight, and just hold it until it cools. And now all I'm going to do is glue gun these in place. And here's my finished little Christmas tree decoration. As you can see, I popped another tiny tree in the front, used one of the very small cones, and just pleated this broderie anglaise around it and topped it off with a little pearl bead. I'd also got a few more beads just left over in the tub, so rather than putting them away, I've glued them onto this little lace tree here just to brighten that one up a little bit. I felt he looked a little bit flat, a little bit dull. But I really love the variety of colours and textures that we've created here. I think it feels really festive, but in a non-traditional way, and I would quite happily have this on display year round, not just at Christmas. Love this one particularly here with this ribbon rose trim. My trees that are on the little trunks have a little bit of a wobble to them when I move it. They're secure at the base, but obviously they're a bit of a wobble, so I shall take care when I'm moving it about. But I'm really, really pleased with how this has turned out, and happy to have used up some of these trims that I'd dyed previously, little offcuts, things like that. Great way of using up those scraps that you've got. Do check out Julia's inspirational video, the one that I took this inspiration from. I have linked that in the description below. But as always, hope you enjoyed this festive make from me this December. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I shall see you again soon. Bye.